So, I remember during the Game Awards last year when the trailer for Pragmata dropped, I was curious right off the bat. It was a brand new IP from Capcom, and Capcom have had a wild record in the last few years of both amazing and absolutely awful releases. So I figured I'd keep an eye on the game on release, skeptical of Capcom's neglect for optimization. And then the game released, and it fucked. When I saw the reviews, I was convinced. Like, I bought it and I played it to the end, and now I just want to talk about it. Now, before I continue, I want to preface this by saying I hate kids. They're loud, they're stupid. I also don't find myself getting emotionally attached to many games, though the last few years of releases have certainly put me in my place. Now, this video will have spoilers. Leave if you thought I was here to sell you the idea of the game. I'm just here to talk about it. This is a post-mortem. So, I went into this game with no clue of what's going on, besides the one trailer that back at the Game Awards, and it doesn't really... The game doesn't wait to show you what it's made of, and I love that so much. Like, it's a detail I always notice and respect when it comes to these releases. Just being able to play the game and not be mired by cutscenes and tutorials and time-wasting features that pull you out of your immersion every few minutes just to remind you of how to play the game or what you should be doing. The game just lets you play. Now, obviously there's cutscenes and there's obviously those in-your-face tips, but they appear when they're welcome. Like, the game has a lot of intricate mechanics that aren't quite self-explanatory. Like, sure, you could figure them out with a bit of trial and error, but when you unlock something like the code generator or those hacking mines, it does help to have a guide on it, just briefly, just to be like, just to show you what they get used for and what they're capable of. The game very much, like, respects your time. It doesn't insult your intelligence. The game has a lot of moments where it instructs you on how to use something, but it's not so jarring or immersion breaking. It's often necessary due to the extra layer of the mechanics. But moving on to the actual gameplay mechanics themselves, I loved them so much. It was already nice that the movement felt smooth, dodging was satisfying, and the gunplay was simple. But to top it off with the hacking minigame, it became kind of special. Like, it might seem like a lot from a viewer's perspective if you haven't played the game, but when you're hands-on with the system, it's really easy. It's very much the phrase easy to learn but difficult to master, and that's all you really need with systems like this. I honestly feel like they cooked. The minigame never gets tiresome or feels repetitive. The urgency in the combat and having to balance the gunplay with the minigame just keeps you on your feet every time, and every fight is so satisfying. My only gripe with the system is that the way some of the guns and hacking nodes in the game tied with the systems were a little too complicated, but I'm willing to admit that it's mostly just a skill issue on my part. There's a lot of crazy shit you can do if you're willing to put in the practice and time, and I'm all for it, from the sidelines, obviously. But thankfully the game never really requires you to fully invest into every tool. There's so many that eventually you just find a rhythm with, that you're most comfortable with, and for me it was just stunning things and shotgunning them in the face, because that just felt like the most Neanderthal approach, just hit it hard until it's no longer a it. Now, one thing I kept noticing about the movement and the level design is the way that it almost felt like a Metroidvania but in 3D. But maybe it's just me, and maybe it's just because I came from playing Hollow Knight for the first time a few months ago. The layout of the levels and challenges just... they feel like they cater to the jump and dash combinations, and having, like, secret evil rooms, and having challenges that test your ability to jump and fight at the same time, and... But now that I'm saying this out loud, it does just sound like a regular action game. But there's also fake walls. Anyways, we can move on from that, but it's just a feeling I had. Maybe there's something to it, maybe I'm just clueless. Anyway, let's get on to the plot. Now, I will just remind you, again, that I'm not a children person, so when I see kids in a game, I'm usually warded off. It sort of gives the impression at first glance that it's going to be hard to take the game seriously when a child is one of the lead characters. That wasn't the case here, of course. This is just it's just where my mind usually goes. And again, I don't get emotionally invested in stories often, especially not of this format. Um, and to be honest, for the most part, that was the case. I wasn't really invested in the story. It was very easy to read. It was obvious someone wasn't going to make it from the start. When you have a piece of media that creates picturesque moments that clearly belong in a flashback that's going to play in the future, you kinda know where this is going. Now, that's mostly me speaking from experience, my decades of consuming video game and movies and whatnot. So it's not exactly a bad thing. It's a recognizable format, and for newer eyes, I can see how these shots would appeal to them and draw them into the moment. So that's not really a criticism, just trying to get across how I approach the game, how these memorable moments came across to me. For the entire time, I was in it for the gameplay. To me, the story was just something to keep me on the rails so I could shoot more 3D printed scum. However, that did change at one point, and it was one moment in the whole game that made me look retrospectively and appreciate the simplicity of it all. As I said, I knew someone wasn't going to make it, and as time went on, Hugh was becoming that candidate, and it was obvious after the incident with 8. The plot had basically decided he was done. And so you carry on with Diana, learn the lore of Dr. Higgins and his daughter Daisy, which at this point I still didn't care much for. Obviously it was dark and fucked up and I recognize that, but my brain was still in gamer mode. The plot for 8 and her intentions were pretty boilerplate villain behavior as well, but I appreciate that they were just a villain through and through, and we didn't try to talk them out of being a villain and just got on with it. And that moment, the moment that finally got me was right at the end, obviously, right? But I wasn't expecting it. Even though I knew exactly what was going to happen, I could recite the scene in my mind before it even took place. We all knew Hugh wouldn't make it and Diana was going to be alone on a beach. And then it happened. And I kind of choked up a little. Like, it was painful to see. It was definitively bittersweet, and it fucked me up. I went the whole game just looking at it as a template for a video game. I was just enjoying the gameplay and not once getting immersed in the plot until they delivered that scene, and I just kind of like looked back on the whole thing, and it really made me appreciate the simplicity of the plot. Like, it doesn't need to be this epic adventure. It doesn't need to be some grand architecture of a larger plot. It was just simple. Like, we knew where we were going. We knew when we'll get there. We know what's going to happen. And that's just it. The game was everything it needs to be. Like, it's short and it's bittersweet, but it was a great ride. Like, Capcom did a great job with this, and I really hope this stays as a one-off. I want more fresh new IPs that don't get churned into oblivion and remastered and remade and rebooted. Just new games, new plots, new characters, just new everything. It's nice, it's refreshing. I'll leave it at that. Now, I haven't touched up on the New Game Plus content myself. I mostly just wanted to get on with the base game because I was awful at finding anything, even with the scanner apparently. But I do intend to at some point. The game feels like it has a ton of replay value despite being about 20 hours of game time, but I probably won't stream or make a video about it. That being said, I stream most days and you can see my gameplay on YouTube or Twitch live streams. I am currently working my way through Death Stranding 2 at the moment, and yes, it's a coincidence that I'm playing yet another game about a child and an adult trying to survive. And I do plan to make my next video covering Death Stranding 2 once I finish it, but man, it's not looking good. There's so much I want to say, but maybe the ending will change my mind, but anyways, thanks for watching. The ending did not change my mind.